Welcome to this video, and it's Christian from Being Premiere, and let me tell you, episode 4, this episode was wild. Remember last week's episode when Ben got captured? Well, the YELLOWJACKETS have decided to play judge, jury, and potentially executioners in what might be the most tense kangaroo court. This episode shows how these girls are transforming, showing us the power dynamics at play, and revealing some major secrets about who might have actually burned down that cabin. So welcome and let's begin.
Maybe this is exactly how it was always going to end for you.
So let's see all of those scenes. After capturing Coach Ben in the previous episode, the YELLOWJACKETS have decided to put him on a trial for supposedly burning down their cabin. But this is not just any trial. Absolutely fascinating about this sequence is how quickly they adopt these formal legal roles. And Natalie becomes the judge, Taissa takes on the prosecution duties, and poor Misty, who clearly still has complicated feelings for Coach Ben, she gets thrown into being his defense attorney. It's like they're playing house, except the house is murder trial, and the stakes are literally life and death. The 2/3 majority rule they establish is super interesting too. It's less than an anonymous verdict in our actual justice system, which shows how they're creating their own twisted version of civilization out there in the wilderness. When Mary takes a stand, her testimony is absolutely crucial. She talks about being held captive by Ben, but she has to admit that he pulled her from the pit and didn't want her to die. This is our first major hint that Ben might not be the villain they're painting him to be. And the most interesting thing about this is the oath they made her take.
What it asks, I will answer. What it says, I will listen. What it needs.
That's so ritualistic. The wilderness itself is becoming like a god or a goddess to them, like a deity. The dynamic completely shifts when Misty starts questioning Shauna. This scene was intense. Misty basically turns the tables and accused Shauna of potentially setting the fire herself because she was not chosen as the leader, and this makes perfect sense. I mean, you can see all the resentment bubbling to the surface. Melanie's performance here is just outstanding. All of the performance in this episode was incredible, but the biggest drop is when we learn that Natalie has known where Ben was hiding this entire time. Talk about a plot twist. Her protection of Ben completely undermines the legitimacy of the trial, and you can see the group fracturing even more when this comes out. But it's Coach Ben's testimony at the end that is emotionally devastating, when he talks about how he cared for them and how he admits that he was scared and acted like a coward. It's actually heartbreaking, but it makes sense. Also, Steven delivers those lines with such raw vulnerability. That moment when he says, "I'm in awe of all of you," you can see how conflicted the girls are. They want to hate him, but his humanity is making it difficult. The most disturbing part is watching the boat despite not actually reaching the required 2/3 majority. Shauna essentially manipulates the outcome. It's like watching her fully embrace her power to bend reality to her will. And Natalie just sits there and let it happen. But it shows how in the past and present, Shauna is not a good character. She's not a good person. But this whole trial is not actually about justice or even revenge. I feel it's essentially a ritual to see what the wilderness wants. The girls have created this performance, but deep down many of them believe the wilderness will be the final choice of Ben's fate. Also, did you catch those subtle moments throughout the trial? Remember when they took that oath at the beginning? They're literally wanting the wilderness as the highest authority, even more than Natalie. So what is your take on this trial sequence? Do you think Ben really did burn the cabin, or is someone else responsible? Let me know in the comments below. Now, what is gonna happen to Coach Ben and his chance of survival? Well, there's some really interesting clues suggesting the wilderness might actually spare him. The fact that he's already survived this long on his own is significant after he found everything in the second episode. The wilderness has not taken him yet despite multiple opportunities. That moment when he gives his emotional testimony about being in awe, again, the power of the wilderness through them. Even after being guilty, we don't actually see his execution, not actual harm yet comes to him. So I believe this is going to happen in the next episode. However, something's gonna happen that he doesn't die. But here's where this episode gets crazy good. This amazing connection in the present day timeline with Tai and Ban. That moment when they encounter that guy who takes the queen card is the same pattern. They're still performing those rituals of choices, but stepping back and allowing the wilderness to make the final call. So this is not just about nice writing. This is showing us how deeply ingrained the wilderness mentally still is in their adult lives. Also, that decision not to go inside the man's house, so important because it's like they're finally learning that when they try to force the wilderness hand or dictate the terms, things go badly. And that's what we see at the end with Van shaking her hand. By walking away, they're respecting the wilderness agency in a way they never did as teenagers. And this connects directly to what happened with Coach Ben in that trial. They tried to force a verdict rather than letting the wilderness decide naturally, which connects to another point about Lottie dying at the end of the episode. My mind is blown. I didn't even think about that possibility, but it makes perfect sense with the themes they're developing this season. If Lottie died or was killed, it will be the ultimate irony. I mean, she's been the most connected to the wilderness, almost its queen. If the wilderness declaims her, it will be like completing a cycle. The wilderness reclaiming its most devastated flower. I mean, the symbolism there will be incredible. It would also explain why the adult timeline feels so fractured. They lost their spiritual guide, the one person who could explain what it wanted. I mean, this choice versus fate, a theme is clearly building towards something massive. If the wilderness is deciding itself more directly in both timelines, we could be heading towards some kind of convergence point where past and present collide in themes. I mean, it's something that we're seeing right now, so maybe. Lottie, as we see at the end of this episode, is one of the most shocking moments of the entire series as well. I mean, the way they reveal it was so brilliantly done too. That quick cut to Misty scrolling through Reddit and seeing the news report about Lottie's death hit like a ton of bricks. And what makes this even more interesting is that earlier moment when we got Lottie looking at herself in the mirror saying I'm sorry. That was not just random, it was foreshadowing. Was she apologizing to herself? That makes sense that she did it. But who killed her? Especially with that mirror scene, maybe the wilderness told her it was her time. Remember what Lottie said? He wants more. I mean, we even see her at the bank, so that is interesting. And the location is significant too. Bedford Street, which is known for its historic architecture and connections, in many ways is the urban equivalent of the wilderness. So maybe. So another thing happening in this episode, and is the tension between Shauna and Misty that has been building all season. But it reached an incredible point in this episode after the whole break failure incident and Shauna is convinced that Misty did it. This is when Shauna and Jeff are working or volunteering at the nursing home, which is Jeff's hilarious karma restoration project. Shauna has this incredibly tense interaction with Misty, and their dialogue is absolutely loaded with subtext. Misty saying Shauna should apologize, while Shauna suggesting sending her for the bill for her breaks. What I love about this scene is how Christina and Melanie play it. There's this perfect balance of passive-aggressive politeness, which is masking absolute tension. So fast forward to Shauna getting locked in the freezer. Quick personal note, this has to be one of my favorite horror moments in the series so far. I mean, the character trapped in a confined space with her own demons. Perfect. Shauna immediately assumes Misty did it again. But here's the brilliant part. We never actually see who did it. Was it really Misty? Was it someone else targeting Shauna? Or was just a horrible accident that Shauna paranoia is interpreting as an attack? And then boom, we get the return of Jackie. Ella's performance as Ghost Jackie continues to be one of the most unsettling elements of the show. And there's so much symbolism in this scene. I mean, Jackie talks about Shauna freezing to death. I mean, obviously what happened to Jackie. Even when she says, maybe this is exactly how it was always gonna end for you. It's like karma coming full circle. Even that line when Jackie says, you're getting colder, aren't you? I'm starting to feel it under your skin. So it's like Jackie is inside Shauna, you know, like the pain and the guilt and all of that. It's like Shauna's deepest fear that without her wilderness trauma, without Jackie's death defining her, Shauna doesn't know who she is, and even Misty is part of that. And the accusation of Shauna being all talk when someone's messing with her, absolutely brutal, because it hits at the reality that Shauna's been reacting to threats, but not actually taking control of the situation. And when Shauna finally gets out, notice how quickly she accused Misty. She doesn't even consider other possibilities, like her mind is made up. This paranoia is setting up what looks like will be a major conflict between the remaining survivors. So I have to say this episode has been my favorite of the season. First off, that wilderness trial, pure gold. The way they structured it like 12 Angry Men, but with this twisted Lord of the Flies was just incredible. We got so many revelations, and even that ending with Lottie's dead, it was the perfect balance. So that's my breakdown for today. What are your thoughts on this episode? I'm dying to know what you thought about Lottie and so on, and who do you think killed her? What's going to happen to Coach Ben? Drop your theories below. My name is Christian from Your Premiere, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye, everyone.